Hello and welcome to the I Can Do podcast with Benjamin Lee. We're here to talk about tips and strategies to have an I Can Do mindset. Life is what you put into it. Get the most you can. Here's your host, Benjamin Lee.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of I Can Do. We're in 2025. We have another fantastic special guest with us today. We've had over 50 guests on the I Can Do podcast since I got started back in 2019. And today we have Tanya DePeiza. Tanya is a master life coach. She is a bariatric and wellness coach. She has so many more talents that we're going to be talking about a little bit more today as well. Now, in addition to being a certified master life coach, Tanya holds a Master of Social Work degree from Jane Addams College of Social Work at the University of Illinois at Chicago. And she's also a certified case manager and a licensed clinical social worker. So Tanya is able to help you in any area of your life. But more importantly, I know Tanya quite well because Tanya is my sister. So Tanya, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ben. I appreciate being here. Thank you for that introduction, which I can't help but laugh because you're my brother. But I really appreciate that, and I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you here, and really proud of you, really pleased with just your transformation in a lot of different ways, with your health and your faith continues to grow and just all the great things you're doing, influencing people for good. And you've been on a pretty amazing journey, and I've been able to see that throughout the years. So now I want to really share that with the audience. And as people start thinking about where they may be in their life or in their lives, I believe that you have a lot to offer them, and you're doing a lot of things, and we'll be offering a lot of services here, even more with a new book coming out and opportunities where people are going to be able to connect with you. So let's go back, I guess. Now, how long has it been? A few years, maybe 3 or 4 years, when you made the decision to have bariatric surgery. Talk to us about that. What got you to that point? And then how did you make that decision? Let's start there and we can kind of explore from there.
Sure. So as surprising as it sounds, it's been a little over 3 years since I had my bariatric procedure. I made the decision in 2021. By 2021, at the age of 47, I was on 12 medications. I was continually being in the doctor's office, periodic emergency visits by ambulance. My health was just declining. You name it, I probably had it. Gout, blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, allergy-induced asthma, and kind of a host of other things as well. By that point in my life, I was just I felt very despondent, very helpless, sometimes hopeless, because I have been battling obesity for, I'd say, over 20 plus years of my life. There's probably not a diet I hadn't tried. There probably weren't incentives you had not offered me to help me get healthy.
Yeah.
And yet none of that worked long term. And I happened to have a conversation with one of my best friends, and bariatric surgery came up. And that wasn't the first time we had talked about it. It's just the first time that I was like, I'll try it. Because prior to that, I thought, oh, anybody who gets bariatric surgery is such a cop-out. And what I learned is it's anything but. And so I think for the first time in maybe, I don't even know how long, for the first time, I actually made the decision to do it. And it was the best gift I ever gave myself. I had the procedure done. I had the VSG, or the vertical sleeve gastrectomy, done 5 days before my 48th birthday. And that was intentional.
Tell us about, what is that, the VSG? What does that mean?
So with VSG, there's several different types of bariatric surgeries you can have. With this one, they take out about 2/3 of your stomach. And so what I was left with was roughly about the shape, size, and width of a banana. And, there's different prep work for that. It really depends on the surgeon. Some people want you to lose some weight before then. Others want you to follow, a low calorie diet plan. Essentially, that's what I did. And what I came to find out was that it really wasn't about, you need to lose massive amounts of weight beforehand. It was to try to shrink a little bit of your liver. They realize our liver sits in front of our tummy. And so when you're already obese, you have a lot of viscous fat. It's hard to see around. And so they just want to make sure, they're cutting the right place. They're cauterizing the right place.
I did
So
not
part
know
of that
that.
was the prep work.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
And
I've always just thought, okay, you gotta get in this mindset of you're gonna have to start eating less, and so protein shakes and things like that. But thank you for sharing that. It's actually for, I guess, safety and making
yes,
sure that they actually have access to it, to your stomach.
yes. You are pumped with a lot of air, and understandably so, because they need to be able to see around all those parts. Now, I went to the Nicholson Clinic. I got connected with them because when I was on Facebook at the time, I was kind of doing just some pre-research, looking at some bariatric groups. I'm actually glad I joined. I learned different things from different people. And it just so happened that someone shared their before and after picture. And I'm like, are you serious? And they, had spent some time since the procedure, but something about that story caused me to private message them. And she was very helpful. I wish I still remembered her name, but she was very helpful. She shared a lot. She told me where she went. I went to the Nicholson Clinic website. They have been listed as some of the top surgeons in the bariatric field here in Dallas for over 20 years. Reached out, scheduled a consult. Mom went with me to that consult and got information. And then I could not have been more clear or more happy that I made that decision. That was a life-changing gift. And I couldn't be more thankful to God for having a second chance at life and health, because what I had not shared with you all was, by the time I made that decision, my vision was changing. And so I was constantly digging in my eyes, and I'm like, oh, it's just the allergies. But it wasn't. I think my type 2 diabetes was getting worse. I had maybe just a couple of months before then had another ER visit where they had to put nitro patches on my chest to calm my heart. So things were, like I said, my health crisis was spiraling steadily out of control.
Let me hit the pause button real quick to interject to get some more details for the audience. I know you're never supposed to ask a woman this, but in the context of this talk, I have to.
Okay.
How much did you weigh leading up to the surgery?
I weighed at that time 370 pounds, and I am 5'5". So my lowest weight in high school stayed between 150 and 160. So over, I'd say 25 years, I gained a second me.
Tell us a little bit about, and this may be hard, but tell us a little bit about how did you get to that point? Because I think this is going to relate to the audience. All of us, maybe not all of us, but so many of us have lost 20 pounds, then gained it back, have lost 40 pounds, then gained it back. So looking back at that younger Tanya from high school to age 46, I believe you said, what were some of the negative habits that got you to that point? Because I want to hear more about now these new habits that you have that are keeping you at a whole different place in your life.
Sure. There were quite a few of them. I'd like to say that I could blame everything challenges, from childhood. I'd like to say that, failed relationships made me do it. They certainly contributed to why I ate. I wholeheartedly admit that. But eating became my coping mechanism, and eating became a friend. And eating didn't argue back. Eating didn't let me down. Eating didn't hurt me. That's what I thought at that time. The reality is it did all of those things. It did let me down. Not the food itself, but how I was using food to cope with the things that I was dealing with. And so I wasn't dealing with my mental health. I wasn't properly addressing my spiritual health. Certainly not my physical health. Growing up, you were the athlete. I was the couch potato. Okay. I'm watching TV.
I think I remember you running the 100-meter run in about 30 seconds. Is that right?
I mean, we had to go there. You didn't have to do that. But since that's how we're starting 2025, let's get after it. Okay. I'm not going to put you on blast about the bench warming with basketball. But I will say that it did take me a minute to do 100 meters, and quite possibly they had started another race. I'm going to let that one slide, okay? Because we're in a new year and people are getting to know.
Get back on track here. Get back on track.
The reality is you were the active one. I have always, up until I had bariatric, been very much inactive. A lot of things that I enjoy don't require movement. I love to watch movies. I love to read. I love to craft. I'm an artist. So I've always been kind of sedentary, which certainly didn't help because I was eating copious amounts of food to try to help me emotionally. And then there's no movement, and then the types of food. So that is actually an important thing to recognize about yourself. And I had to realize that the kinds of foods that I gravitate toward, they're not the same for everybody. I don't care about whether or not I eat pie. I love cake. I like cakey things, cakes and donuts. I like mac and cheese. I love potatoes, mashed, baked, broiled, smashed. So there are certain foods that I would go to more than others, very carby, very heavy. And just, how we cooked some things growing up, it was huge portions. And maybe not the best oils and things like that. Yeah. So all of that contributed. But at the end of the day, I was choosing to use food to self-soothe. And over time, I think I tried to break down like 370 over the course of 10, 15 years is just almost like a steady gain of 20, 22 pounds a year. And so it's very gradual, but then it catches up.
Because if you divide that by 12 months, that's only 2 pounds. So that's half a pound a week. Yeah, but we don't actually, we don't think about it from that. So those little decisions, and I think this is a great point for everyone to think about, the little decisions that we make if we skip that exercise or skip the workout or say, okay, I did work out, now I'm going to reward myself with eating something that basically takes away my gains. So I appreciate you sharing that. Before the actual procedure, what kind of like eating regimen did they put you on, and how did you get through that? Because that had to be a shock to your system, right? Because I've heard people take like shakes or something like 2 weeks leading into it. Walk us through that and what was happening mentally as you were leading up to this procedure.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So again, diet pre-surgery really is dependent upon the physician and where a patient goes to get their care, and every surgeon's different. My pre-prep was very different from a friend of mine who recently had it a few months ago. That was a little more labor intense for a longer period of time than my physician. I had a roughly it was about a 1,200 a day calorie meal plan that they provided for me. And so I needed to follow the meal plan. So there were a couple things. By the time I made the decision to get this procedure and got the meal plan, I did not care that it was 1,200 calories because I was so miserable every single day. Every single day I was crying, I was hurting. Arthritis runs in our family, as you know. So, eating highly inflammatory foods and lots of it, and just for a long period of time, 1,200 calories didn't bother me because what I felt for the first time was hope. I knew that in 3 weeks, I'm going to get this procedure. And what I had been told when I had my consult was, this is just another tool. You can eat yourself back up to 370 pounds.
Wow.
And I was just kind of like, okay. I don't think I comprehended that much at the time. I just was like, I feel hopeful for the first time in a long time to get some help. So if this plan tells me to eat, it's a protein shake, it's, the Laughing Cow cheeses and, some deli meat or whatever it was, I'm going to eat that because I knew something better was coming. So by the time I had maybe lost 10 pounds, 10, 12 pounds, but by the time I had the procedure.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the way it was explained to me, it was more about safety versus you need to lose like all of this. And the day came, I had the procedure. It was outpatient. That kind of took me by surprise at first. But they got me in, and as soon as I could walk around, they got me out. And that's when I feel like the healing started to begin for me, because that's the first time I gave myself a gift of this type of magnitude.
So when you say healing, you're talking about not just physically, but also mentally.
Yes, and that's a progressive thing. I made 3 years post-op October 28th of 2022. Or
Yeah,
I'm
that's
sorry,
awesome.
2024.
Yeah, awesome.
And the mental part never stops. And so what I learned, there's some things you have to kind of do your own research on. I had a cousin, who had this procedure. So she was extremely helpful in sharing her journey and different things. And then I met people in some groups. And then the Nicholson Clinic also has their own private group on Facebook for support. You have to do the work. And that was a little bit foreign for me because I wasn't doing mental health work before the procedure. And what I saw was you need to do it. If you didn't do it before, you need to do it now, because otherwise you just keep the same patterns, the same habits, and the weight will come back on. It comes on slower, but it will come back.
What has some of that mental health work looked like for you? Walk us through that.
So I have gone through therapy.
Okay.
I have had coaching. I've met with a bariatric coach whose story and wellness over the last 20 years of her life. Her name is Katie J. She has gone through sobriety recovery, health recovery, obesity, and had bariatric. And I happened to find her doing an online search, and we connected that way. She's out on the East Coast. Extremely compassionate and kind, and understands what it's like to feel lost and hopeless and stuck like in this vortex of all that comes with obesity. Definitely have been digging deeper in my spiritual life. That's, you can't accomplish anything without God. You just can't. It's very hard. And if you could have done it on your own, you would have done it before. But I'm grateful. I have a great support system with my family. I have very supportive friends. And little by little, with every success and every win, I have started to be my own champion too.
Good.
And that feels great because I don't even know when that happened last. I really don't.
What does that mean? Because I think one of the struggles that people have is learning how to celebrate victories. Or
Yes.
just even acknowledging, hey, I did this. And, the celebration doesn't have to be anything big. It could just be, a pat on the back, or Dan Sullivan in his books, which I really like. Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy talk about the gap in the gain, where, staying in the gain. And part of that way of staying in the gain is measuring your wins and things like that. So what has that looked like for you? And maybe what you're doing can be something tangible for the audience about celebrating yourself. And I know you're not talking about, exalting yourself or anything like that, but
No.
what does that actually look like to help you keep moving forward?
No, that's a great question. I think in the past, wins for me had to be big. Like they had, you got to lose 50 pounds, or you got to lose 25 pounds, or, you have to have these huge epiphanies that hit you. And the reality is the amount of energy and effort it takes to lose a pound is phenomenal. So I've kind of learned that the scale is not the end all be all. Some of the wins, because there's caveats when you have this type of procedure, that even though you've had it, you can sometimes gain weight. And you're like, well, wait, I had this procedure. I should just always be a loss. It's not. Sometimes you will have stalls, meaning that you'll stay at the same weight for long periods of time, or you'll have gains even when you're following the way they want you to eat. And it's because your body has just gotten used to obesity and now things are shifting. So losing a pound over time, I was just like, I am so proud of you, because self-talk has a lot to do with it too. And my self-talk was pretty poor. It was pretty poor. I still have to keep working on it, but it is so much better than where it used to be. So those little wins, when I could walk from my apartment door to my car and not be out of breath, was a win. When I could bend over and tie my shoe and didn't feel like I was almost kind of choking myself, that was a win. When I put on something that I held on to with mercy, because I'm like, I will fit you. But when I could put it on and I'm like, did I just put this on with no belt? Did I just put this on and I didn't unbutton it? Could I zip this? And I would just kind of look and be like, that just zipped. Like, I'm looking at no one, and I'm just having these like bursts of joy. So there's all these little wins that sometimes we discount, those micro habits. No matter how small the shift, it is a shift from how I thought before. And what that led me to eventually was feeling healthy enough and not having chronic pain every day in something, to start doing some virtual races or virtual challenges.
Yeah.
And those turned out to be the perfect fit for me.
Good. How many have you done?
Oh, wow. It's been over 70.
Wow.
Over 70 virtual challenges.
Fantastic.
Thank you. I tapped into the Conqueror challenges. Those are so much fun. And
What are those? Tell us about
the
those.
Conqueror challenges. So these are virtual challenges. You can do them by yourself. You can do them in a group. They have different themes, and you can walk and travel all these different places virtually through their app. So you pay for the race, and then you can pay for swag. However, they have t-shirts, they have medals. At that time, I wanted the medals. And that was an incentive. I like rewards. So that was an incentive for me, even though I paid for it. And then along the way of your journey, they're sending you postcards about where you're walking. And I enjoyed that. I went to places I've never physically been through the postcards and through
That's
walking.
really cool that they send you. So they send you photos of what that place looks like.
Yeah, and it's actually written like there's a tour guide, and they're like, "Hey, Tanya, so today I was in the valley and it was hot," and
that's pretty.
So that
cool.
was very helpful. And now I'm doing Pacer challenges because I have the Pacer app. And if you subscribe to their annual subscription, you actually get free access to the challenges. And you can choose whether or not you want to order a medal. But that has been very instrumental in me, hitting step goals, slowly increasing step goals, slowly. You have to relearn your body, because I couldn't move in a lot of ways, and it hurt. So to be able to move has just been, it's been incredible to move. And then I've been blessed to do a few in-person 5Ks and get back before they start picking up the finish line,
Yeah,
that is a
that
definite.
happened to me. That happened to me. I did a half marathon, and I said, "Hey, where are the medals?" And or when's the whole little celebration? They're like, "Oh, they've already finished it." And so I picked my medal up out of a box. So whatever, man. They need to do better with that.
The end game, the win is you finish.
That's
Kudos to
right.
you. Kudos to you. Because my little walk jog in the 5K, I was like, Lord, please help me. Okay. So there, that I think that's fantastic. And you've always been a distance runner.
Yeah.
In my mind, you can't tell me I'm not running this trail. In reality, my body's like, look, let's not look a gift horse in the mouth. Slow down.
Right.
But
right.
those have been ways for me to be my own athlete.
Good.
I don't need to race against you or somebody else, because I don't have a desire, one, to do that length. But I think when you've spent a lifetime being obese, you spend a lifetime not dealing with things that have led to you becoming obese, not being accountable for choices and decisions and things like that. It just gets, it gets hard. And so my competition now is me. For me, that's a win. And if I don't hit a mark, I don't like berate myself incessantly the way I used to, right? It's like, okay, we try again tomorrow. Um, and you mentioned earlier about the 10K that is coming up. And I'd actually love to share the story of why I signed up for that.
Yeah, please do.
So, we were with you for Thanksgiving. And for the audience, my brother is not just my brother. He's also, he challenges me quite a bit. But I've come to appreciate that. So again, thank you.
You're welcome.
But he asked me, he's like, well, we had a conversation. You've done a lot of 5Ks. You can do them. You've beaten your own time. So you need to do something that scares you. And I'm like what? And you said like a 10K. And I'm like, and you said that. It's that look right there, which is why you need to do it. So I came home. I pretty much had a little bit of an attitude as, you know me, I'm your sister. But I signed up for a 10K. And God wills, that is going to be April 12th. And with the Mercy Run here in Carrollton, Texas. And I love the fact that the benefits assist siblings who have lost siblings. And so that was touching for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, 10K, 6.2 miles. Okay. Never done that. So you found me a training plan online to walk it. I will not be trying to run it, but walk it. And I just finished week 5. Mind blowing because, I still work through trying to complete things that I start and following through and keeping the promises I make to myself. So that's been great. I'm learning different things to walk faster. I never realized I don't typically walk heel to toe. Now I do.
Yeah.
It pushes you faster.
That's right.
So in my mind, I'm like, let's go. I will outwalk it. I will outwalk it,
All right. So this is good. So let's recap a couple of things because a couple more questions I want to ask you before we wrap up. One, when we think about, I guess, medicine and the different options that are out there as we think about our health and obesity, that we need to view them as tools. So whether it's like the weight loss surgery or even now different injections, view them as tools. It's not cheating, but it's a tool, especially where you said you could gain all the weight back anyway. So it's a tool. Number 2, we always have to work on the mental component, whether we're in shape, out of shape, or getting into shape. Number 3, celebrate the small victories. And I try to document my small victories. You have all your medals up where you live. And so you get a reminder about that. And I think that's really important to celebrate those victories. Number 4, push yourself, make your future bigger than your past. So you're doing a 10K because now that's something that you've never done. We're recording this in January. So you sent me a text this morning that saying, man, I've followed this plan for 5 weeks and you haven't done something like that before. So make it easy. That's number 5 with a plan. So whether a coach with you or an online plan or something like that. So all of these things, I'm seeing these breadcrumbs, right, to success, and breadcrumbs to not just getting to be successful, but also remaining successful. Because one of the greatest dangers of future success is current success. So it's like, okay, I've made it. And that was part of the reason I think do the 10K, because you already have been successful with the 5K. So we can start turning down that temperature, as Tony Robbins talks about sometimes, turning that down. All right, I got to ask you another question. Again, we typically never ask this question, but I want to do it. So you started at 370. Where are you currently at?
My lowest this year has been 243.
Woo! Great job. 243.
Thank you. Yes.
So that's really amazing. And I think there's a lot to be said about that. Why do you think, this was another question, why do you think sometimes there is, I think you had mentioned this shame on going on this path of having some kind of surgery or taking a shot or something like that? Why do you think we attach shame to that or embarrassment to that?
Well, I think just societally, it's kind of this nomenclature that, you should have better discipline. You should have better self-will. You should have better fill in the blank. So I don't think anybody wakes up and says, hey, I want to be obese. Nobody wakes up and says that. What often happens is, we can get caught in a lot of different cycles. We can get caught in patterns that we just sometimes don't even recognize we're doing them because they're so habitual. And then over time, whether it was food or something else, that can take over. So sometimes we're fed these ideas that, if you fail, then you're a failure. And what happens sometimes when we feel like a failure? Well, we quit, we give up, we feel hopeless, we feel helpless, we stop trying. And so I think we need to reframe how we think about health and wellness, because there will be things in life that cause us to gain weight. It's not always just eating. It could be a medical condition. It could be not managing your mental health. It could be because you're actually on a med to manage a condition that causes weight gain. So everybody's different. And I think, when we see obese people, a lot of times we make assumptions and judgments, and we don't know anything about that person. We don't know if they've dropped 100 pounds. They used to be 500, now they're 400. But what we see is, well, obviously they don't have any self-control, or we think and look at people with disgust because they're different, because they're big. Being healthy does not mean that you weigh 160 pounds. I know slim people that I can outwalk, my labs look better, and I'm still bigger than them. So health can be very subjective. So I think we have to be very clear and very careful about prejudgments or assumptions about people who look unhealthy, because we don't really know what's behind that. And when it comes to tools, like I mentioned earlier, I thought it was a cop-out until I had it. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, because everything has to switch. Now, we all have choices. We can choose to change or not. It's up to us. But I can say I'm never going back to 370. I'm not. And, we also have to be realistic about how we are going to live our life, how we eat in our life, why we're eating what we're eating in our life, and just keep focusing on where you're trying to go. Now I can receive and comprehend failing forward. We can fail, but we can fail and go back to where we were, or we can fail, get up and try again and go to where we're trying to get to.
Talk to us about some of the services that you offer. So you're a master life coach, bariatric coach. Maybe there's someone listening who's like, yes, I resonate with her story. I need some guidance. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm very excited. As you mentioned, I do have a professional background as a licensed clinical social worker, but coaching differs a little bit because it's for people who are kind of more focused in the now. They're ready to move forward, and it's a short-term thing. And so, in addition to that, as I mentioned, I'm also a creator. I'm a crafter. I paint. I do mixed media. I collage. I love to journal. And that's been a big part of my obesity recovery, is journaling and art journaling. And so I also will be offering that to my clients if they're interested in that piece. Because one, it's a way to self-express. Two, sometimes we can't find our adult words and pictures help. Okay, so you want to scream it out, but you're like, I'm in a house full of people. That's okay. Let's cut out some magazine pics of all the screams, right? And then you can just say me, and then that's your entry for the day.
Yeah.
But also, we forget to have fun. And when we're trying to conquer weight or thoughts or whatever the case may be, art can be a great way to express and just have some fun. It doesn't require you to overthink it. You don't have to be perfect. I think perfectionism definitely negatively impacts when we're trying to heal on a holistic level. So I want to talk to my clients about that. What's holding you back? Nobody knows that but you. But I'm a very firm believer. If you're brave enough to make the decision that I need some help, I'm here and I want to walk with you. I cannot do the work for you, but I'll walk with you. You will get some of this humor. You will get some reality checks in a nice way when we've learned each other.
Right.
But I think that's part of the healing process. So I'm very excited to incorporate some of that in my coaching. I have a book coming out soon, my first book of poetry. I'm very excited about that.
Great job.
Writing has been one of my tools for self-care since I was young. So,
what's the title of your book?
It's called Scorpios Love Loud.
Okay.
And looking for that to come out in the next couple of weeks.
Great. We're recording this in January. So
yes,
tell us where people can find you.
They can find me at www.Tanya, Tanya, DePeiza, DEP as in Peter, EIZA.com.
Awesome. Tanya, this was perfect. Final thought for the audience.
You can do it. You can do hard things.